Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and I woke up today and I was thinking about this election, and I was thinking about, black people getting riled up about Trump versus Hillary, and or getting excited about the Democrats, and really a lot of times it seems to me that supporting the Democrats unconditionally, which is what we pretty much done. We're more loyal to the Democrats than the Democrats are to themselves. I think that this loyal support of the Democratic Party largely is driven by a defensive strategy, and the defensive strategy is, if you don't support the Democrats, the Republicans are going to hurt you. They're going to put you back in slavery. They're going to come into black communities and kill everybody. Things like that, right? And of course, I think it's all silly. It's all funny to me. It doesn't mean the Republicans aren't don't have their issues. They certainly do. You'll never see me vote for a Republican, not in any election in the near future, because the party's too far off base. They're just not particularly intelligent, in my opinion, or organized when it comes to really doing things that will appeal to black people. But what's so funny to me is that we really get invested sometimes in these battles that really are battles between white folks. If you look at history and you go watch old documentaries about, the political history in America, you'll see that these battles between liberals and conservatives go way, way back, 200 years and or more, 250, 300 years. And basically black people, in my opinion, once we were free from slavery and Jim Crow and all that stuff, we were sort of indoctrinated into this war, and we were used as soldiers that would increase the numbers on the liberal side. So as a result, black people have been the dividing line in many elections in the last 50 years. We've been the ones who pushed Democrats over the top, but most studies will show that we have not benefited under Democratic administrations. And in fact, a lot of people would say that black people did better under Bush than we did under Obama, which was our first biracial president. Now, mind you, what's interesting to me about all of this is that when you talk about this whole system, it's a white supremacist system. People talk about Trump being racist. Yeah, he is. I don't like the guy, but it's funny because I see Hillary, I see racism. I mean, her husband sent more black men to prison than any president in the last 40 years. When I see Bernie, I see a man who won't even acknowledge reparations, who's got Killer Mike and run around like his little puppy, basically representing him or whatever. But you'll never see Killer Mike running for president. But with Bernie Sanders carrying his water. But you fully expect to see black people carrying the water for white candidates like Ta-Nehisi Coates carrying the water for Hillary Clinton and Michael Eric Dyson working for Hillary Clinton. And but you'll never see Ta-Nehisi or Michael running for president because in a white supremacist system, they'll never get the money they need in order to do that. Obama got the money because Obama is half white. Remember, he was raised by white people. If Obama were not half white, he wouldn't have got the opportunity to run as president of the United States. If he looked like Wesley Snipes, Obama never would have had a chance to be president. So just understand the country that we live in. I think that's very important. Now, one thing that's interesting to me is that, you'll hear one thing that's interesting about the Democratic Party to me is that, they will, when you look at the issues they fight the hardest on, the Democrats always fight the hardest on one issue. What is that issue? The issues of voting rights. They always fight like hell for the voting rights for black people because they know that if you can get to the polls, you can keep them in power, right? And what's unfortunate is that they'll fight hard for your right to keep them in power, but won't use that power necessarily to support you. And as Dr. Wilmer Leon, the brilliant political scientist at Howard University, said, he said that's like getting your man getting you to put gas in his car so he can go visit his other woman, right? So if if you're a woman and you imagine a man doing that, saying, "Hey, baby, I need gas money," and you give him gas money, he uses that gas to go drive to see another girl. That's kind of what happens with the Democratic Party. So ultimately, I think that with the Democratic Party, you'll never see them work as hard on mass incarceration as they do on voting rights. You'll never see them work as hard on black unemployment as they do on voting rights. You'll never see them work as hard on closing the wealth gap as they do on voting rights, or work as hard on reparations as they do on voting rights, or work as hard on educational inequality as they do on voting rights. Typically, if they work on an inequality issue for us, what they'll do is they will, as Dr. Claude Anderson talks about, they'll water it down and suck it into some broader inequality issue. Like, we don't need to worry about racial inequality on wealth. We need to worry about poverty. We need to solve poverty. If we solve poverty, then we'll solve the race issue. That's like when President Obama, when he was asking about black unemployment, and he said, "Well, the rising tide will lift all boats. If I help everybody, it's going to help black people too." Well, that was that strategy was as flawed as trickle down economics. Reagan said the same thing. Basically, Reagan said the exact same thing. Reagan said well, not the exact same thing, but it was very similar in the sense that he said, if I help the people at the top, the wealthy and the corporations, then those benefits will trickle down to everybody, right? Well, Obama was saying that if I lift the tide, then it's going to lift everybody's boat that's in the water. So if I make one broad, pervasive strategy and don't deal with this specific problem, then it's going to just solve everything, which did not work. Black people actually did not do very well under the Obama presidency. Now, you can love Obama, you can love the family, you can love his swag and all that, but when you look at the actual policy, you don't see much benefit for black people under that presidency. Really, truthfully, we could have Trump as president for the next 16 years, and it wouldn't be as bad for black folks as what happened in the last 8 years. Now, I'm not trying to say that Obama's bad or Trump is bad or Trump is good or what. I don't care. Well, my point is that when people ask me, who am I voting for? Are you voting Democrat or Republican? I say, you know what? My vote is for the black community. So that means that, whatever candidate best helps the black community, I might consider that candidate. I might vote for a third, other candidates or write in a name or something. But I refuse to feel that I have to participate in a system that has been proven to not benefit black people, no matter who's in office. In fact, if you're open-minded about this, I encourage you to read an article in the New York Times this week where they basically ask, is the Democratic Party facing a revolt from black people? And what they do is they just give evidence to show that, even though black people have put Democrats in office repeatedly, we haven't benefited very much when they're in power. Another article you may want to read if you're open-minded, you want to just see different ideas, because you get certain ideas all the time, right? But I think exposure to all ideas is the best approach, where you can do what's best for you. That's the best thing I can tell you. The best thing I can tell you is not to tell you what to do, other than to tell you to educate yourself and learn what's out there and be exposed to ideas and follow your conscience. Anybody who tells you not to do what's best for you and to think for yourself is probably not your friend. They're probably trying to control you to make you part of their agenda. So when somebody says you have to do that, if you don't vote, you don't count, or whatever, I'm not a fan of that, because what you're doing is you're basically forcing people into an action, based on, your ideology. Now, sometimes that makes sense. Sometimes people do that. Like, for example, I say, buy black, come on, let's go buy black. Well, you know what? It's supporting my agenda. My agenda is I want black money to stay in the black community. So even when I tell you to go buy black, I'm saying something that is consistent with my agenda. I want to see black people have control of money, right? So typically when somebody tells you what to do, it's usually because it's something that they want to see happen, not so much something that they know for sure is best for you. Right. So anyway, another article I encourage you to read if you want to see different ideas. Read W.E.B. Du Bois's article. I think it's called "Why I Will Not Vote." Now, W.E.B. Du Bois, smart guy. He kind of breaks down the same frustration that we have today. That really there's not really choice in the process. There's the illusion of choice, and so he says, you know what? You're not going to force me into making a choice. You're just not. It's like when I go on a TV show, sometimes people will trick you or try to trick you into a yes or no question. They'll say, well, yes or no, Dr. Watkins, is blah, 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 blah. And if I don't like the question, I'll just say, I'm not answering. No, that's not that. You're giving me a yes or no question for something that is not going to be adequately answered with one word. If you allow me to elaborate on my answer, then I will answer your question, which means you're giving me more choice in terms of how I'm going to answer this question. But when you eliminate the choices down to two choices that will benefit you either way, I'm not touching it. You're not forcing me to do shit. That's the bottom line. The last thing I want to say is I want to throw this out just as a general thought. Think about this. Okay, so one of the things that you will hear consistently is you'll hear people say, you're disrespecting our ancestors when you don't vote because our ancestors died for us to have the right to vote. And that's what they'll say. The Democrats will say that in a church. They'll come to a black church and they'll say, in Selma, and the civil rights movement, black people died for, black people to have the right to vote. Because remember, the Democrats care more about protecting voting rights than anything else. But here's the thing. which is interesting to me. Our ancestors also died for us to have the right to integrate. We found that integration really was kind of a flawed strategy based on how it was done. Our ancestors also died for us to have the right to walk into a white department store and give white folks all our money. They died for that too. So does that mean that we should do it because they died for it? It does not mean that we don't thank them for their sacrifice. Absolutely. I consistently reiterate the importance of understanding our history and respecting what our ancestors did for us. But don't allow somebody to guilt trip you into doing something that does not make any sense to you. So because somebody died for something, I know Crips and Bloods who died protecting their block. But does that mean that their children should be protecting the block too? The block that they don't even own? No. So I know soldiers who died fighting the war in Iraq. Does that mean that the war in Iraq was a just war? No, it doesn't. It means that they were probably misled. So, to some extent, some would say that our ancestors might have been misled on certain things. I'm not saying that voting shouldn't be something black people are allowed to do. I'm not saying that voting should not be important to you. I'm just saying that you want to have an open mind and not let people kind of talk you into certain ideologies that kind of fit with whatever they want you to do. Because to some extent, basically, in this political game, black people were pawns in this bigger war. And I'm just not, no, you're not gonna, if you can't do something for me and my family and my community, then and don't show up asking me for my vote or my endorsement. None of that. I don't. When candidates call me, I tell them go away, just leave, because you ain't doing nothing for black people. And if you lie to me, I'm gonna really be pissed off at you. And the thing is that these candidates, they lie. They all just lie. I guess that's part of their strategy. That's what they do. So it's not something that interests me. My vote is not for the Democrats. It's not for the Republicans. It's for the black community. Period. Point blank. All right. Well, I'm about to get out of here. By the way, March 26th, we are giving the world premiere of our new film, Resurrecting Black Wall Street, The Blueprint, all about the Black Wall Street Massacre in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm also going to give a really awesome conversation and lecture on cooperative economics and what it takes to build your own Black Wall Street, how you can build a Black Wall Street in your own family. We're also going to have a panel discussion. It's going to be an awesome night. It's going to be at the historic Black-owned Southside Chicago Harold Washington Theater, which is beautiful. Harold Washington Center, which is beautiful. It's a beautiful venue. There'll be 1,000 people there. It's going to be awesome. I hope you can come out. Also, we're going to Baltimore after that and some other cities. So you can find out more by visiting the DrBoyceWatkinsTour.com. Excuse me, that's the DrBoyceWatkinsTour.com. So take care, guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.